Katelyn, you made an appearance in John's sermon yesterday.
I'm scared.
You and the Cebu flower pecker.
Oh.
Do you know what that is? Have you ever seen one?
Not that I am aware of.
It's one of the rarest birds in the world, and I think there are only 100 left. So
oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm guessing you have not seen one.
I think I would know. Yeah.
Yes. Also, they're located in the Philippines.
Oh. I guess I'm going to the Philippines for Christmas.
Well, according to John and his sermon illustration, if you ever want to see one, you will have to be very prepared. You'll have to stay vigilant, and you'll have to be on guard.
It's striking me that yesterday was the first Sunday in Advent, so it feels like an Advent theme, and maybe the bird is Jesus.
'Tis the season. You got it. From Religion News Service, this is Saved by the City, a podcast from two Christian women staying vigilant, standing guard, and flower pecking all over New York City and beyond. From Brooklyn, I'm Roxy Stone.
And from the beyond, apparently, I'm Katelyn Beatty.
Well, John might have brought you up in his sermon yesterday for the birding metaphor, but I will admit I kept thinking about you.
Did he just say, like, I have this friend who's really into birds?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I approve.
He did name you. He used you by name. He said, if my friend Katelyn ever wants to see the Cebu flower pecker or the New Caledonian owlet nightjar or the Stresemann's bristlefront, that you would have to stay vigilant. Be prepared. Do your research. Look up from your phone.
That's good. I appreciate the shout out. I'm not entirely convinced these aren't birds from Harry Potter, you know?
I know, right?
But I trust that John did his bird research.
I believe he looked up the rarest birds in the world.
Yeah.
And then picked the ones that sounded the most fun to say.
Yes, that's good.
But I kept thinking about you during his sermon for a different reason, which is that you are very much in a time of limbo, which is basically what Advent is.
Yeah.
Limbo between Christ's first coming and second coming. The now and the not yet.
Yes.
As is often trotted out during Advent. So you've left New York. You're not sure what's next. You're in limbo. How's that going?
The now and the not yet of Katelyn's life. It's okay. Leaving New York, I knew that there would be a transitional time, that there would be a limbo time. I think it has felt like it has dragged out longer than I had planned for. And it's just, it's uncomfortable to not know where you will land next. I mean, I think I will land somewhere in the next month, but just the not knowing when and where is a little stressful and makes me feel kind of immature or something, like I should have it figured out.
Oh.
And that I should have this like forward motion and have a big plan.
Right.
And instead it really feels like, no, right now there's a sense of waiting. And like early in this limbo period, I recognized that I felt like I was in a free fall and was praying like, okay, I trust that like something can happen in a season of waiting that can't happen in a normal season, but it doesn't make it particularly comfortable for most of us.
No, definitely not. I do think it's interesting that your limbo is happening during Advent.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for it to be extending into Advent. So that's
right.
But thank you, God. Thank you for aligning my life with the liturgical calendar in this way.
Yeah, I think you should definitely be grateful for that. I mean, I remember feeling this way a bit this summer. You know, it was clear that we were going to have to, that everybody who lived at the seminary was going to have to move out. But it wasn't clear yet when. And we were sort of waiting for like the final verdict on when. And it kind of kept getting pushed back.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like not knowing like what was the future going to look like and where would we be. Like a good thing about that was I felt like we didn't take any days for granted. It was very much like, oh my gosh, this is all coming to an end. We really have to like savor it. But I also feel like there was like this twofold temptation, which was either to be like super nostalgic and be like, oh, this is the best it's ever going to be. It was so amazing. These are all the reasons. And like to feel a lot of sadness about that, or to just feel like clingy to it.
Mm.
And then the other temptation was, of course, to like be kind of so anxious and trepidatious. Is that a word? Trepidatious?
Oh, yeah. That's a 50-cent word.
For the future that you couldn't even live in the present, that just like always be like cycling through all of the anxiety about how it could all not work out.
Yeah. Well, yes, I will say the first week or 2 weeks after leaving New York, I kept having dreams about New York City, like being on the subway or walking in my neighborhood and waking up with such a heart pang, like really actively missing it. And that has subsided a bit, but not knowing what's coming ahead, I have very much looked back and wondered, did I just make a mistake leaving? Or I've definitely idealized and romanticized my time in New York. Like, oh my gosh, it was always glorious, when I know intellectually, no, it wasn't. Like there were hard things about it. Like my parents have a washer and dryer that I don't have to pay coins with for. Anyway,
yes.
I know that temptation in myself to idealize the past or to think about the future only in terms of what could go wrong or will it ever work out, rather than what if something really good is around the corner and you're just not there yet. And you can't rush getting there. Like there's something about this time that is meaningful in and of itself. It's not just like a way station from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Which seems apropos of Advent, because the temptation is to rush to Christmas, right? Like, to kind of skip this season of waiting because it feels uncomfortable or dark or brings up complicated feelings around the holidays. And I think it's really good to have a kind of liturgical rhythm that asks us to wait, to like linger in this season rather than rushing to Christmas morning.
Right.
So Advent is the season at the beginning of the Christian liturgical year. So we are like on day 2. Advent starts 4 Sundays before Christmas. And in some traditions, those Sundays have themes like hope, peace, joy, and love. At the church I attended yesterday, which is my parents' church, we lit the hope candle with the little wreath. And you light a candle each Sunday, but the overarching theme of Advent is preparing or anticipating, waiting for what's to come.
Specifically, we're awaiting the return of Christ, and we're preparing for that in part by looking back at his birth, celebrating his first coming. I sort of think about that as the nostalgia part of Advent, but we also do that by staying vigilant, looking ahead. So maybe this is the anxiety about the future. But Advent is also a time of recognizing that sort of the things in between right now, in the right now time, are not as they should be. The world is in pain.
I got to admit, I haven't thought about the return of Christ for a while.
Now's the time.
Yeah, it's connected to just acknowledging that the world is not as it should be. And so we wait for things to be made right. And we're preparing for that or hoping for that in this time. Also, we eat chocolate every day from little calendars. So that is maybe in the liturgical tradition.
Yeah. Is that like being present in the moment, finding some joy in
savoring,
the sorrow,
savoring the moment, the Lindt chocolate moment. We should get advertising from Lindt for this.
LINDT, not to be
confused with another liturgical season. Yeah, in which we do not eat chocolate.
Exactly. Do you think they intended to do that?
Oh, to confuse us? Maybe.
No Lindt for Lent.
So Why do you think it is that we are uncomfortable with periods of waiting?
I mean, I guess we just crave a plan. Like some of my friends moved out early, and I think in part because it was just like unbearable to kind
Mm,
of keep living in limbo. And New York is tricky, of course. It's like a hard place to live. It's a hard place to find an apartment. And so I think when you just kind of have this thing looming in front of you, and every month you think, will it happen
mm,
next month? And you see a place that maybe looks good. It's,
mm-hmm,
you just kind of want to like move on. I think that maybe that is part of it too, is like it becomes harder and harder to just enjoy where you are if you
mm-hmm.
know it's ending. And I think there were moments where it felt like we were just clinging to something like, and that in some ways became unhealthy. We would joke about like, playing the violin on the deck of the Titanic, as it sank. Like it
Oh,
sometimes just
yeah.
felt like, okay, is it just like, are we all clinging to something that is definitely going down and we just need to like get off the boat?
Jump ship.
Yeah. And like find our door plank?
Yeah.
So I think there's a balance there. I don't think waiting forever is great, but I found that time to be rich in some of the ways that now that it's Advent, I'm thinking about Advent. Like there
Mm,
was a presence about it. There was a counting down and an intentionality of like, we have these people in this place for only
mm-hmm.
so much longer. So let's really treasure it.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say a lot of things about the last month have not gone as I thought they would.
Mhm.
And it's the gap between expectations and reality that can really breed resentment or stress. So I went to church with my parents yesterday, and this is the church that I grew up in.
Mhm.
And we sang O Come, Emmanuel. But they had like set it to like be happy and upbeat. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, heck no, that is not. That is not what Advent is about.
Travesty.
We sing dark, moody,
Yes.
somber hymns that take you to the place of like waiting on God. And
Yes.
it's hard. And it's the Enneagram 4 of the liturgical season. It's about longing for something you don't have.
Groaning.
Up in your feelings about the second coming.
Yeah. I agree with you. As a 4, I agree with
Yeah.
you. Advent truly resonates the most with me. Longing, waiting.
Also, like, I'm not like other liturgical seasons.
Absolutely not. I am purple.
Like, a lot of people don't know about it.
Exactly. I'm dark, I'm moody, I'm deep.
So maybe we should go through the liturgical seasons and assign them Enneagram numbers. That seems to be a helpful framework for us that we keep coming back to.
Definitely. I definitely think we should artificially force this ancient calendar into
something we found on
this construct.
enneagramtype.com. Not really.
All right. There are not 9 liturgical seasons, but we could throw some important days in there to get to 9.
Yeah.
We've already started with Advent.
Yeah. Advent is a 4. Then we go into Christmas.
Christmas.
I'm maybe going 7.
Dang, I was saving 7, but maybe, yeah, okay, let's do it. Christmas is 7. It's all cheer, it's lights, it's presents, gifts, unwrapping.
Yeah. Jumping from all the fun things to the fun things.
And it's over quick. Moving on to the next thing.
It's a little ephemeral. What is Epiphany?
Well, it's when the 3 magi come and visit Jesus with their gifts.
So they have the love language of gifts. That's something else.
I think, the Epiphany is like the realizing that this is the Savior.
A kind of recognition.
So maybe this is the 5, like wisdom.
Perception, contemplation. They needed a lot of alone time.
They really had to do their own research. Or they decided it was
They
the
were
savior.
not influenced by outside forces.
Exactly.
Lent feels very one to
Oh,
me.
man. Okay, good. Okay, that works.
What did you have in mind?
Well, I was gonna go with 2 because of the martyrdom.
Wait, how is martyrdom related to Lent?
You're sacrificing, you're giving up. You're
Yes.
fasting.
It's like, look at all I'm doing for you, God. Oh, I like that. I was thinking 1 because it can be so severe and like
Yes,
this
rule
is such a
driven.
time of like self-purification and mortification and like really dwelling on how you fall short. There's this like ideal perfection, and Lent is a time that we remember that we need help.
So it's like a 2-wing 1 or a 1-wing 2,
Yeah.
Easter. What do we have left? Wow, what is Easter?
I could see going 8.
I was gonna go 8 with Pentecost because of the fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Maybe 3 because like Jesus got stuff done during Easter.
Maybe.
Just like
I was gonna go with
conquering.
3 for ordinary time because ordinary time feels very like it feels like the ambitious time. It feels like that's like when you really get stuff done.
Oh, see, I was thinking ordinary time as being more laid back.
Oh, interesting.
I'm going to go 3 for Easter because it is like God's decisive action.
It's the most productive.
It is the most productive.
Feast day. Yeah.
The most efficient, really.
3 days. It was just 3 days.
And just like very impressive, right?
So true. So true. And Jesus showed up sort of as a chameleon in several occasions around Easter, He was a gardener. He was just wandering on the road.
They didn't recognize him. He's like trying to blend in. Can I have a piece of your fish?
We are really taking this.
Yeah, we might have lost some non-Enneagram diehards. That's okay. They'll come
right.
back.
All right. So Pentecost. We're going with 8.
Definitely 8.
Fire. Yeah.
All we know about 8s is that they're fiery.
Exactly.
And then,
all right.
So ordinary time. You were saying that might be a 3.
I was, but we've moved on. So now it's like, is it a 6 or is it a 9?
I think of it as a 6 because it's like just the stable, steady, nothing too dramatic, like plodding along. That would be my bent.
I'll go with it. So we don't really have a 9. I mean, there are only 7. I was going to throw in, maybe we could throw in Ash Wednesday, All Saints Day. I don't know that those solidly fit anywhere.
For the 9.
Yeah. And then we sort of like didn't quite figure out the 1 or the 2, but we gave those to Lent.
Yeah.
Lent's long. It can have more than 1.
I agree. I think we covered them well.
We're good.
The 9 is missing because the 9s normally are missing. They're just like wanting to blend in, not make waves, so it's fitting that there is no 9.
Some people say that 9 is the perfect type and that Jesus was probably a 9.
It's statements like these that make people make fun of the Enneagram. What are we even talking about? Jesus was a 9. It's like saying like Gandhi was probably a 6 with a 5 wing. Like what? What are we doing? King Tut. No. King Tut was totally a 4.
All right. So safe to say that the liturgical calendar was not made for the Enneagram and the Enneagram was...
It was made for us.
Right.
Both were made for us in different ways. In her new book, Even After Everything, our guest today, Stephanie Duncan Smith, does not assign Enneagram types to each liturgical season, but she does give us a beautiful exploration of life through the lens of the liturgical calendar.
Love is so much about the loss of control, and it takes guts. What ultimately I think matters most to us, presence and human connection and belonging, that will always require us to risk. I do think it's badass to choose to try again, hope again, love again.
Our conversation with Stephanie is coming up just after the break. Religion News Service is an independent, award-winning source of global reporting on religion, spirituality, culture, and ethics.
From Advent to Ramadan to Yule to Diwali, RNS has religion covered year-round.
Are you following us on social media yet?
Are you following us?
Are you following us?
We know you're obsessed with us.
Are you stalking us? Well, you should. We'd love to see you there. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I think.
Yep.
At the handle @SavedByTheCity.
We'd also love to hear your feedback and ideas for future guests and topics, so drop us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts or shoot us an email at sbtcpodcast@religionnews.com.
We're so excited today to be joined by Stephanie Smith, an author, a book editor, and also a good friend to both Katelyn and me. And her new book, her debut book, Even After Everything, is out now. The book is as beautiful as I expected it to be and more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Your new book, Even After Everything, explores the whole liturgical year, but it begins and lingers in Advent, which is, of course, the season we are in now. It's a season that often gets lost in the holiday hustle and the Christmas cheer. The Christmas lights kind of overwhelm the candles. Your book really dives into that dissonance, as well as sort of the personal dissonance of having your life experience sort of clash with the seasonal festivities. So tell us a little bit about that particular Advent that opens your book and why the liturgical season loomed so large for you at that time.
Yeah, so this book had its origin out of a hard story, and dissonance is very much the word. So my husband and I were together for about a decade before we decided that we wanted life to be more than just the two of us. And so that was a monumentous decision to begin with. And there was a lot of ambiguity and not really, frankly, much desire. So it was quite shocking when we discovered that we got pregnant right away after never having tried before. And then I warmed to the wonder of that first pregnancy during Advent. It was still early. I felt like my body was rehearsing in this embodied way this sacred story. And that was really beautiful and meaningful. And then there was this whiplash experience when we lost that pregnancy the week before Christmas during Advent's week of joy. And it was also happenstance the winter solstice. I was experiencing a very, long dark night. And I felt seen by that in a way that I did not feel seen by this really the ultimate pregnancy and birth narrative that is the hinge of history as we know it. So I was not going to the Christmas Eve service. I was not participating in the wonder of the Advent season as I had previously. But I did find this space in the winter solstice that felt like I'm seen here. And I have a chapter called Naming the Night, and I found that to be what's needed when any tragedy or loss occurs, just naming that night. What I realized along the way, Advent is actually not a season of light, even liturgically. Christmas is this celebration of joy, but Advent was never meant to be that. Advent is the preparatory season of Christmas when actually the whole world is dark and crying out in pain. And then the incarnation is the response to that pain. So I had to discover that for myself. But I think that our personal moments and seasonal moments, they can often clash in beautiful and also very painful ways. And that's what prompted this book in many ways.
Thinking about Advent, and if you were encouraging people who've maybe never thought about Advent or maybe never leaned into it, what are some practices besides getting chocolates out of a calendar that could really help people experience this like fullness of Advent and what it is?
Yeah, I have this memory of being in, I think it was a Christmas Eve service, and It was at the downtown cathedral in Orlando,
Aw.
which you are familiar with, Roxy. Beautiful downtown cathedral, but the Christmas carols were interrupted by the sound of sirens and ambulances outside. And it was just quite a striking juxtaposition of, whatever it was, silent night, sleep in heavenly peace, and then you hear these sirens. And I'm looking up and seeing the ambulance light, dancing through the stained glass windows. You could see it. And it felt rattling, it felt unsettling. But I have really come to think as that is the spirit of Advent. Advent is not the joy of Jesus coming with us and Christmas. It's the waiting and the where are you, God? Because this is an emergency, frankly. And where are you and are you coming? One traditional Advent hymn is O Come, Emmanuel. That's traditionally sung in Advent as a way of expressing this is a problem. When are you going to show up? Because we've been waiting for you and we need you.
You write in this book about this miscarriage that you experienced during the season of Advent. And as we all know, it's something that it's an incredibly common experience. And yet it is a thing that a lot of women experience in private and don't always know how to name and grieve. So maybe just practically, what did you most need from people around you, from friends and family, as you experienced a miscarriage? And then how do you encourage someone to grieve alongside?
Yeah, it is such a private grief. And many are familiar with the stats, but 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. So extremely common. And I have also experienced recurrent loss. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they were both born after losses. So this is a very common story. I think everyone has to find the way to process that pain, and that will look different for everyone. But I think no matter what, it's essential to find at least a few safe relationships where you can be yourself in the fullness of your pain and not have to pretend and not have to deal with the pretense of life going on as normal. I have often thought that the loss is really the first grief and the pretense as the second. Because when you have to go through the motions as if nothing has changed in your life when everything has, that will just drag you down. Also, I would add, on a very practical note, for women who experience pregnancy loss in the workplace, you can take FMLA leave after a pregnancy loss.
I did not know that.
And not every workplace offers that. That access is more limited than it should be, but you can. I was blown away when I learned that. So I think that's something people should know, that if you want to take time, you can, and you can decide what that looks like for you. And I think, just telling people what you need and almost giving them your user manual. Like tonight, I just really need to go to the movies and not talk about anything. Or today, the last thing I want to do is be with people. I just need to be by myself. And of course, resisting any impulse to say why, which is often well-meaning. I think that the most harm is often done when people try to impose a why on a hard thing rather than just practicing being with.
I think the other thing I feel like it's either the why or you can have another baby soon. You can get pregnant soon. People get pregnant after miscarriages quickly all the time. I feel like that's the other thing I think people say a lot.
Exactly. A primary metaphor in this community of those who've walked through pregnancy loss is the rainbow baby.
Oh, yeah.
And I never want to take away something that's meaningful to somebody else. So without doing that, if that's meaningful to you, I love that. But where it gets tricky is the unspoken, sometimes spoken implication that after rain, you're entitled to a rainbow. And that's just simply not true for many people. And it's something that I wrangled with in the writing of this book, even because the last thing I wanted was to present a narrative that says, here's my rain, here's my rainbow. Even after everything, I was deep into edits when we endured our second loss. I don't tell that story in the book, except in an epilogue to say the story always continues. So I really wanted to contend with that and not show this simplistic narrative that you'll go through some things in life, but then you'll bounce back and, you'll get your resolution or you'll get what you were hoping for, because that does not hold up in so many people's experience.
Yeah, which is what makes hope so badass, as you write in your book. You write, because hope in the after, hope against the grain of entirely reasonable fear in the unknowing of how this story will go, is some kind of badass.
Yeah, that in the narrative is when we'd had a scare with the pregnancy of my daughter, who was born healthy and safe. But after our Advent loss, I gave birth to our daughter nearly a year to the day after that loss. So in that circle of a year, every single day was terrifying. And the trying and then the hoping that everything's okay. And I think any love is so much about the loss of control. And it takes guts. It takes guts. What ultimately I think matters most to us, presence and human connection and belonging, that will always require us to risk, whether that's trying for a pregnancy, starting a new relationship, braving a new friendship after a terrible friendship breakup, or starting at a new church after you've been burned, or walking into community. We all have baggage, and we've all seen how this can go down in flames. So, yeah, I do think it's badass to choose to try again, hope again, love again.
And also, the choice to let go of control is different from an experience that wrests control away from you.
Yeah, and I think another really wonderful effect of that choice is that I think we end up really proud of ourselves when we make the difficult choice to try to hope to love. So my daughter is 3, almost 4, and we'll get frustrated over little things like dropping the snack or getting our shoes on, and I've started telling her, let's try this again, because we're not the kind of people who give up. And it's been really sweet to see how she's taken that up as her anthem and reminds me of that.
We don't give up picking up our goldfish crackers.
We never give up on the snacks.
No
Never.
goldfish left behind.
Yes. And it's been so sweet just to see how that's connected with her in a sense of pride. Like, yeah, I'm the kind of girl who doesn't give up. But I think that we're all like that. And I think we like who we become when we enlarge our capacity for risk and we consent boldly and bravely to, I'm going to give this story a chance to begin, no matter where it leads. But I want to see what's going to happen, and I want to give it a try.
Do you want to be our spiritual director?
Okay. Speaking of, your book, maybe more than most things I've read or anything I've read, I don't know, it really connected me to a sense of God as feminine, to the divine as like embodying a lot of the aspects of what it means to be a woman, to have periods, to carry a child, to hold life and death in your own body, to risk birthing a child into the world. So did becoming a mother and the loss and also giving birth, like, did that shift your views of God in terms of this sort of traditional masculine characterization we get? Did that offer you some sense of God as feminine?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny. I really didn't have much of a conception as a kid even of becoming a mother someday. So yes, this experience through a most embodied sense has really given me a new view to new ways of seeing God that have always been there. And I also want to be clear to say that I would never suggest that becoming a mother is the only way to access these new views of God. And in fact, I'm actually mostly embarrassed that I didn't come by them sooner. But yeah, I, like many Christians, I grew up with a very masculine presenting vision of who God is. And that is just absolutely wild to me that I've held this glaring omission in this faith of my own for so long. One of the things that I think about too in the liturgical year, it's often visualized as a circle. So Advent to Advent is this circle of time, as it's often shown, moving through all the seasons. And I write about this some in the book, but I really have started to think of that circle of time as a womb, as the womb of God, sort of birthing ultimately new creation. And I resonate with the labor that is inherent to love, to any love. And, God carrying life, God taking that risk on life, God holding all things together. There's that passage in Colossians that's very poetic about in him all things hold together. And I really started to think about it as in her all things hold together, because I think of this image of a woman carrying a child and all that a life can hold.
Roxy and I have talked a lot on the podcast about our own questions around the possibility of becoming moms. Neither of us have biological children. And we both really resonated with some of the things that you shared about your conception of motherhood before actually becoming a mom. Just this overwhelming sense that someone would be dependent on you for everything, and that would feel maybe not just like overwhelming, but that there's a stigma attached to that sense of dependency, or motherhood feeling kind of like basic or beneath you. So I think we both understand those ways of thinking. What would you tell that version of yourself now that you have become a mom? What would you say to your previous self who was thinking some of those things about motherhood?
That's such a good question. One thing that really stayed with me in my own discernment process on this question was a friend who was a parent who said, I discovered whole new rooms in the house when I became a mom. And that was, I think, my first memory of kind of perking up to that with some interest, going, I like more rooms. I like more multitudes. Let's bring that. And something else that really compelled my imagination is considering maybe new rooms in the house that I would also encounter in my husband, who we have so much, history together. It felt intriguing to consider. I know Zach, deeply, but I've never known him as a dad. I've never known him as a parent. I wonder what he's like. I have no idea. I've never met that Zach, and he's never met me as a parent. So I think I was so swayed and scared of this conception of motherhood as less. I was convinced it would make less of me. It would threaten my white-knuckled individualism and agency and autonomy, and it would change the shape of my time. It would make demands on me, my body, my time, my sense of self, and that was very off-putting. But conversely, I think I would say to myself, it really can make more. And I say can because it doesn't always, obviously. Becoming a parent is not universal experience for anyone, but I think it can bring out new dimensions in ourselves if we are open to that. And I think it's been really good for me to draw myself out towards others. And I hope that carries not just into my relationship with my kids, but my relationships writ large. And at the same time, I will tell anybody who listens, again, just speaking for myself, but children are the greatest disruption to ever grace my life. And I mean every single word of that sentence. They are an absolute disruption and they're an absolute grace. And, I choose this, but I think it's stretching. It can be stretching in really good ways. And that can be not only a decision within your personal life, your familial life, but I think that, again, if we're open, that can carry into all of our relationships. And that's, where I'm inspired that we are all so interconnected, and that is how it should be. So I think it's held a lot of unlearning for me, for sure.
This has been a really lovely conversation, Stephanie.
Truly.
I feel very spiritually enriched by it. So thank you for spending this time with us, and thank you for a beautiful book.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for reading. Thank you for having me.
Katelyn, it's been a while since we've done a poem on the podcast. So I'd love to close out this episode with a reflection on Advent from Rowan Williams.
Nice.
It's called Advent Calendar. He will come like last leaf's fall, one night when the November wind has flayed the trees to the bone, and earth wakes choking on the mold, the soft shrouds folding. He will come like frost, one morning when the shrinking earth opens on mist to find itself arrested in the net of alien, sword-set beauty. He will come like dark, one evening when the bursting red December sun draws up the sheet and penny masks its eye to yield the star-snowed fields of sky. He will come like crying in the night, like blood, like breaking, as the earth writhes to toss him free. He will come like child.
Cue the snaps. Thank you.
Saved by the City is a Religion News Service production. Senior producer is Jay Woodward, and the consulting editor is Paul O'Donnell. Our editor is Julia Wyndham.
Chaz Rousseau put together our look, and Martin Fowler wrote our theme music.
We are Roxy Stone.
And Caitlin Beatty.
Thanks for listening.